Have you ever felt like you were walking on eggshells around someone? Like no matter what you said or did, it was never good enough. That's the exhausting reality of dealing with a narcissist. These are the people who suck the air out of every room they enter, leaving you gasping for validation and questioning your own sanity. I know this all too well from personal experience. There was a time when I had a boss who exhibited classic narcissistic traits, an inflated sense of self-importance, a lack of empathy, and a constant need for admiration. Every meeting was a minefield, with her taking credit for others' ideas and belittling anyone who dared to disagree. It was like being trapped in a toxic fog, slowly suffocating my confidence and self-worth. Can anyone else relate to that feeling of being emotionally manipulated and drained by someone's self-absorbed behavior? The thing is, we've all encountered narcissists in our lives, whether it's a family member, friend, colleague, or even a public figure. And our natural instinct is often to call them out, to expose their behavior and demand accountability. But what if I told you that there's a better way? A higher approach that not only protects your peace of mind, but also has the power to initiate real change. You see, directly confronting a narcissist is like trying to reason with a brick wall. Their fragile egos and lack of empathy make them resistant to criticism or feedback. In fact, it often backfires, leading to further manipulation, gaslighting, and even retaliation. But there's a wisdom that transcends our human impulses, a wisdom that comes from a divine source, offering us a path to navigate these challenging relationships with grace and resilience. You're absolutely right. Calling out a narcissist directly can be a dangerous game, one that often leaves you feeling more frustrated and drained than before. To understand why, we need to dive into the psychology behind narcissistic behavior. At their core, narcissists are driven by an insatiable need for admiration and a deep-seated fear of being exposed as inadequate or flawed. Their self-worth is entirely dependent on how others perceive them, which is why they go to great lengths to cultivate an image of superiority and success. Any form of criticism or feedback that challenges this carefully curated persona is seen as a direct threat, triggering a defensive response that can manifest in various toxic ways. Have you ever tried to have an honest conversation with a narcissist, only to be met with deflection, blame shifting, and even outright denial? It's like they're living in an alternate reality, one where they can do no wrong, and any perceived slight or disagreement is immediately dismissed or turned back on you. This gaslighting tactic is a hallmark of narcissistic abuse, designed to undermine your sense of reality and keep you off balance. But it doesn't stop there. Narcissists are masters of manipulation, employing a range of tactics to maintain control and feed their fragile egos. They may resort to love bombing, showering you with excessive praise and affection one moment, only to withdraw it abruptly as soon as you fail to meet their unrealistic expectations. Or they may engage in triangulation, pitting people against each other to create division and maintain their position of power. And let's not forget the art of projection, where narcissists attribute their own flaws and insecurities onto others, deflecting any accountability and painting themselves as the victim. It's a twisted game of psychological warfare, leaving you questioning your own perception and sanity. Worse still, when a narcissist feels truly threatened or exposed, they may lash out in more overt ways, resorting to verbal abuse, emotional blackmail, or even physical aggression. Their fragile egos simply cannot handle the prospect of being seen for who they truly are, and they will go to great lengths to protect their carefully constructed facade. So you see, attempting to confront or reason with a narcissist is often a futile exercise, one that only serves to escalate the situation and leave you feeling more exhausted and demoralized than before. It's a vicious cycle of toxicity that can be incredibly difficult to break free from, especially if you're caught in the web of a narcissist's manipulation. But there is another way, a higher path that transcends the ego-driven games and offers a more profound transformative approach. It's a path rooted in wisdom that has been passed down through generations, one that recognizes the futility of engaging in battles of the ego and instead focuses on cultivating inner peace, compassion, and resilience. You're absolutely right. There is a higher wisdom that offers us a different approach to dealing with narcissists, one that transcends the ego-driven games and toxic cycles we often find ourselves trapped in. This wisdom comes from a divine source, a wellspring of guidance that has been passed down through generations, across cultures and belief systems. Have you ever felt that nagging sense of frustration, that burning desire to call out a narcissist behavior and demand accountability, to expose their manipulation and selfishness for all to see? It's a natural human impulse, one that stems from our own wounded egos and desire for justice. But what if I told you that there's a more profound path, one that not only protects your inner peace, but also has the power to initiate real lasting change? Imagine for a moment that you're standing on the edge of a vast, still ocean. The waters before you represent the boundless wisdom of the divine, a wisdom that whispers to us through the ages, inviting us to let go of our earthly attachments and embrace a higher perspective. As you gaze out across the expanse, you can feel a sense of calm wash over you, a gentle reminder that there are forces at work far greater than our individual struggles and ego-driven battles. This is the essence of the spiritual approach, a recognition that our human impulses and emotional reactions, while valid, are often rooted in a limited understanding of the bigger picture. When we cling too tightly to our need for validation or retribution, we become trapped in a cycle of suffering, perpetuating the very patterns we seek to escape. But what if, instead of engaging in that cycle, we chose to respond with love and compassion? To see the narcissist not as an enemy to be conquered, but as a fellow human being struggling with their own pain and insecurity. This is not to excuse or condone their behavior, but rather to acknowledge that their actions stem from a place of deep wounding and disconnection. Across spiritual traditions, there is a common thread of wisdom that teaches us to meet negativity with positivity, to respond to hatred with love, and to cultivate a sense of empathy and understanding, even in the face of adversity. It's a radical concept, one that challenges our very notion of justice and retribution, but it is also a path that holds the promise of true transformation. Imagine the power of responding to a narcissist's manipulation with kindness and patience, of meeting their grandiose claims with humility and grace, of refusing to engage in their ego-driven games, and instead holding space for their humanity, their vulnerability, and their potential for growth. It's a shift in perspective that can be incredibly difficult, but one that has the power to disarm even the most entrenched narcissistic tendencies. This is not to say that we should simply accept or enable toxic behavior. Quite the contrary. By cultivating a sense of inner peace and detachment, we become better equipped to set healthy boundaries and protect our own well-being. But instead of lashing out or trying to win against a narcissist, we can choose to disengage from the cycle of conflict, focusing instead on our own spiritual growth and personal evolution. You might be thinking, this all sounds well and good in theory, but how does it actually play out in the real world? How can I possibly respond with love and compassion when I'm being gaslit, manipulated, and emotionally drained by a narcissist? Fair question. The spiritual path is not an easy one, but it is a powerful and transformative one, and there are countless examples of individuals who have successfully navigated even the most toxic relationships by embodying these principles. Take Sarah, for instance. For years, she was trapped in a cycle of abuse with her narcissistic ex-husband. Every attempt to reason with him or stand up for herself was met with a barrage of insults, blame-shifting, and emotional blackmail. It was a soul-crushing experience that left her feeling hopeless and isolated. But then Sarah discovered the power of faith and spiritual practice. She began to cultivate a daily routine of prayer, meditation, and self-reflection, drawing strength from a higher source and learning to detach from her ex-husband's toxic behavior. Instead of engaging in the endless battles and power struggles, she chose to respond with compassion and boundaries. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when she felt tempted to lash out or give in to the anger and resentment. But each time she reminded herself of the bigger picture, that her ex-husband's actions were rooted in his own pain and insecurity, and that by meeting negativity with positivity, she was planting seeds of transformation. Over time, something remarkable happened. Sarah's unwavering commitment to her spiritual path began to shift the dynamic. Her ex-husband, so accustomed to the cycle of conflict and manipulation, was disarmed by her calm, centered presence. Slowly but surely, his attempts to provoke and control her lost their power, and a new sense of respect and understanding began to emerge. Sarah's story is just one example of the transformative potential of the spiritual approach. There are countless others, like Mark, who learned to set healthy boundaries with his narcissistic mother by cultivating self-love and detachment, or Jasmine, who found the strength to leave a toxic workplace by turning to her faith community for support and guidance. The common thread in all of these stories is the recognition that true change begins within. By shifting our perspective, cultivating inner peace, and drawing strength from a higher source, we become better equipped to navigate even the most challenging relationships and situations with grace and resilience. Of course, this is not to say that the spiritual path is a magic solution, or that it will instantly transform a narcissist into a paragon of empathy and self-awareness. Change is a journey, and there may be times when setting firm boundaries or walking away from a toxic situation is the healthiest choice. But by embodying the principles of love, compassion, and non-attachment, we open ourselves up to the possibility of real transformation, not just for the narcissist in our lives, but for ourselves as well. We begin to shed the layers of resentment, anger, and hurt that have been weighing us down, and we emerge stronger, more resilient, and more deeply connected to our authentic selves. At the heart of this spiritual approach lies a profound truth, that true freedom and transformation come not from winning battles of the ego, but from letting go of our attachment to them altogether. It's a counterintuitive concept, one that challenges our deeply ingrained notions of justice, retribution, and even self-preservation. But it is also a path that holds the promise of profound peace and personal growth. Think back to a time when you found yourself locked in a cycle of conflict, anger, or resentment. Perhaps it was with a narcissistic family member, a toxic coworker, or even a public figure whose behavior left you feeling outraged and indignant. In those moments, it's only natural to want to fight back, to call out the injustice and demand accountability. But what if, instead of engaging in that battle, you chose to step back and let go? Letting go doesn't mean condoning or enabling toxic behavior. It doesn't mean surrendering your boundaries or compromising your values. Rather, it's about recognizing that our attachment to the conflict itself, our burning need to be right, to win, to exact revenge, is what keeps us trapped in a cycle of suffering. Imagine for a moment that you're standing in the midst of a raging storm. The winds howl around you, pelting you with debris and threatening to sweep you off your feet. Your instinct might be to brace yourself, to dig in and fight against the forces of nature. But what if instead you chose to surrender to the storm, to let go of your resistance and allow the winds to pass through you, trusting that the calm will eventually return? This is the essence of the spiritual approach, a recognition that our struggles and conflicts are often fueled by our own resistance, our refusal to accept what is and let go of our attachment to how things should be. When we cling too tightly to our ego-driven desires and expectations, we become trapped in a cycle of suffering, perpetuating the very patterns we seek to escape. But when we learn to let go, to surrender to the present moment and trust in a higher wisdom, something remarkable happens. The storm of conflict and turmoil begins to lose its grip on us. We find ourselves standing on firmer ground, anchored in a sense of inner peace and clarity that transcends the chaos around us. This is not to say that the path of letting go is an easy one. It requires a deep commitment to self-awareness, a willingness to confront our own fears, insecurities, and attachments. It demands that we cultivate a sense of humility and surrender, acknowledging that there are forces at work beyond our limited understanding and control. But for those who embrace this journey, the rewards are profound. By letting go of our need to control, to win, to be right, we open ourselves up to a deeper sense of freedom and authenticity. We begin to see the world through a lens of compassion and understanding, recognizing that even the most challenging individuals and situations are ultimately reflections of our own inner landscape. And in this space of non-attachment and acceptance, we create the conditions for real transformation to occur, not just for ourselves but for those around us as well. When we cease to engage in the ego-driven battles and power struggles, we disarm the very patterns that fuel toxic behavior. We become living examples of a higher way, planting seeds of love and understanding that have the potential to ripple outward in ways we may never fully comprehend. So as you navigate the inevitable challenges and conflicts that life will bring, Remember the transformative power of letting go. Remember that true freedom lies not in winning battles of the ego, but in transcending them altogether. Embrace the wisdom of the spiritual path, and trust that by cultivating inner peace, compassion, and non-attachment, you are contributing to a greater force of love and healing in the world.